where we discuss all things of Earth and outer space, where we divine to pass the time, and no one can put us down or in our place. Grab your tea leaves or your spirits and gather around. The embers are glowing, warm flames abound. The hallowed hearth welcomes you now.
Long before words were ever pressed into paper, humanity's oldest shelter wasn't a roof. It was a circle. We gathered at the cave mouth, staring into the flame, using the dance of smoke and shadow to explain the terrifying, beautiful unknown. As centuries shifted, the firelight evolved. It became the flickering torches of ancient Greek amphitheaters, the shared breath of Victorian parlor ghost stories, and the ink of psychological thrillers designed to keep us up long past midnight. The mediums change, from cave walls to printing presses, and now to the digital airwaves. But the human need remains exactly the same. We still crowd around the light, looking into the dark, waiting for someone to say, "Let me tell you a story." Tonight, as we kick off our frighteningly fantastic Authors Month, the circle is officially open. To help me welcome our spectacular guest, I'm bringing my favorite co-conspirators to the mic, Rachel and Haley. Pull up a chair. We've got a massive story to dive into tonight. Hi.
Hello.
Oh, hey, Mama. So, yes, I am so excited for this series. Just books and books and books and books. And yeah, so Rachel brought us our guest tonight, and we've met briefly just before we went live, and this man I think is going to be awesome. I cannot wait. So, before we really dive in, are you guys like, he's going to be psychological thriller, but when you grab a book, like, what are you reaching for?
Yeah, I mean, I like psychological thrillers, but I'm always partial to like anything that's sort of spooky, dark, macabre, all that. If you saw my shelves, you'd know.
Same. I love poetry. That's my guilty pleasure. But yeah, anything macabre, spooky, otherworldly. I like sci-fi.
Yeah.
But thrillers, obviously. Oh my gosh. You cannot go wrong.
No.
Yay, we got
So, Rachel, tell us
Yes.
a little bit about our guest tonight.
Okay. Or did you want to pull a tarot, or are we diving right in?
Oh, I just want to dive right in.
Okay. Take every Yeah, so we are thrilled to welcome author A.G. Mock to the show, known for his weaving complex and compelling tales that explore the dark corners of humanity, the supernatural, and the monsters that link both around us and within us. AG has captivated readers with thought-provoking stories that blur the line in between reality and nightmare. He invites his readers into a world where fear, mystery, and the unknown collide, challenging us to consider what really makes a monster and whether the most frightening creatures are the ones we can't see at all. So settle in, grab your favorite cozy beverage, join us as we explore storytelling, folklore, monsters, and the paranormal and the mysteries that inspired A.G. Mock's most unforgettable work.
Hi, AG.
Hello, everybody. Hi. How are you?
We're doing wonderful.
Yes.
I'm so-
Now
I'm thrilled to be here, so thank you for that. I think this is such a fun opportunity, and we're going to talk about some interesting things. I know Rachel has some good questions, and I'm going to do an exclusive review here on your podcast that no one else knows, and it's going to be about the release of my new thriller. But I'm here for you as long as you want, so I'm ready to dive in. Rachel, do you have some questions? Let's get into it.
Yeah, I'm ready. So I'm a big fan of Now is the Time of Monsters. So, because I shared with you before on another podcast I had you on, and I had shared for the rest of the audience that kind of hail from the San Francisco Bay Area. And being that the book is set there, I mean, it spoke to me like in so many ways. And, I just love, of course, all the things that are like Zodiac and, because it's still a big mystery, and that kind of blends into that so well as well. So what was the very first spark that sort of inspired you to write Now is the Time of Monsters?
Good question. The way that I typically work is I'll come up with, oddly enough, I come up with typically a title. If I were to show you my phone, I have probably 120 titles that are all original that I want to be working on, and I'll never live old enough to get them all done. But I'm going to try my hardest, that's for sure. Maybe you ladies can help me with some kind of extra immortality spell.
We'll do our best.
Yes, please. Thank you. So I normally start with the title, and then I think, what a cool title. Like, I just love those words, and it sparks something, like an emotion. And that's so important to me. And then I go from the title to, okay, what could that be about? Like, what are the themes that we're talking about here? And after I go title, theme, and start to just have a nebulous idea, I then move to, I actually design my own covers, and I then design the cover for the book, and I have that on my screen the whole time I write. And it helps keep me focused on that end game, if that makes sense. Because I don't know if you've ever heard this, or Rachel, if we talked about this on the last podcast like 2 years ago. There's two kind of writers. I don't know if you guys have heard this. There's a plotter and there's a pantser. Plotters are meticulous. Plotters have their whiteboard, and they have everything plotted out. They know every name of every character. They know their entire background. They know the complete plot. They know, at which point we're going to have the inciting incident. They know what the pinch points are. Like, they know all of it, like from A to Z. That's typically, like your hardcore plotter. I'm a pantser. And I came to learn recently that, and it's funny, you think that you're doing it wrong, right? Because like, everyone else talks about doing it this way, and you're not doing it that way, and you think, well, maybe I'm doing it wrong. And I tried to plot once, and it wasn't very successful. I found out Stephen King, with one of his latest works, I can't remember the name of Stephen King's most recent one. It's one with like the Lady Justice with the scales, I think, on the cover. He said that for the first time ever, he plotted that book, because, and that was the first time I had heard this year that he is also a pantser. He just lets the story flow, and so do I. He said for that new book, he actually became a plotter. He did it deliberately because he wanted to see what it was all about. And he said it was the hardest damn thing he ever did in his life, and he'll never do it again. So I have that in common with him, if nothing else. But all that being said, Now's the Time of Monsters, which is that one. And it's and the hardcover. Hang on. There's the hardcover. Boy, it's hard to do this when you're going the wrong way around. How do you go that way? There you go. There you go. No, wrong way. There you go. Now's the Time of Monsters started out just like I said, as did all the others. There was and it's not a political book, by the way, at all. Like, I don't do politics. I don't agree with it. I don't care what side of the spectrum you're on. Politicians are all the same, if you ask me. So I steer clear of any kind of politics. But what was interesting was not so much politics, but how culture has repetitive cycles, right?
Yeah.
And we keep living the same mistakes over and over again. We'd like to think that we don't, but we do it. And
Exhausting, isn't
there
it?
was, I think it was an Italian socialist by the name of Antonio Gramsci, and he said the most beautiful and succinct quote that made a whole lot of sense about the upheaval in the world global structure of society in the 1920s. And that quote was simply, the old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born. Now is the time of monsters. And I thought, wow, that gave me goosebumps. Like when I read that, I was like, dude, I don't care what your politics are. That's a great damn quote. I have goosebumps right now just thinking about it. And I just love that, because if you fast forward, say 50 odd years, give or take, to like the 60s and 70s, we were in a similar upheaval again, at least certainly in the United States, when after World War II in the 1950s, there was extreme prosperity in the U.S. It was suddenly achievable to reach, the American dream, white picket fences and a house and 2.3 kids and all that. And all of that in the 50s was so phenomenal after what the world had been through in World War II, the Depression, the Spanish flu, World War I, like so much upheaval. Suddenly in the 1950s, everything was starting to get bright and shiny. Fast forward a decade, and suddenly you have a youth of America who was highly disillusioned. They didn't prescribe to that white picket fence American ideal of the 1950s of their parents' generation. Part of it, of course, is that they didn't live through what their parents and grandparents had lived through, right? So they didn't have that negative background to fall back on. They just looked at their ideals and said, like, hey, we can all be groovy together. Like, we don't need to have a nuclear family because you're my sister and you're my sister and you're my sister. And we don't need to have like the monogamous, husband, wife, 2.3 kids and a dog. We can all just love each other, right? Because like we're just all going to have whatever we want to have. And that's just the way of it. And it wasn't that it was there was no violence as such. Certainly, if there was, it was only just, sporadic little pockets. The flower power hippie culture was the opposite. It was all peace and free love, right? But what was so interesting is that was so at odds with that mainstream American accepted culture that it created a rift. So suddenly American culture was split. And in so many ways, it sort of reflected what was happening 40, 50 years earlier in the 1920s when Antonio Gramsci wrote what he wrote. And oddly enough, fast forward from the 60s to now, and we're in the same situation where, we're polarized yet again. Like, I've not seen it this bad for a very long time. I don't know if I've ever seen it this bad, actually, with the polarization of our cultures. And if you go back 20 odd years to 9/11, which was horrendous and awful and heartbreaking and should never be forgotten, if anything half good came out of that, it was this commonality that all Americans had. And all Western civilizations actually had, because, Europe and England, they all came together with America about how awful this was, how unacceptable it was. And we were all brothers and sisters again, which was really cool. Almost like that flower power vibe. But that over the last 20 odd years has disappeared again, right? And now here we are all over again. So we had the 1920s, and we had like the 60s and 70s. Now we have the 2020s. And isn't it funny how it just keeps going over and over again? And I thought, boy, this Gramsci dude, he was onto something, wasn't he?
Yeah.
About, the old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born, and now is the time of monsters. And to make it simple for my silly little head, I sort of likened it to the fact that when the human body gets a cut and you don't take care of it, and there's a rift in your skin, that it can become infected, right? You have all this beautiful skin all around you, but this one little cut, if not taken care of, can lead to infection. And the more I looked at these different eras of disrupt, I noticed that it was sort of like that. Like there was a rift in society, like an injury in society. And although that was not necessarily the goal, what happened as a byproduct is that society became infected. So there you are in San Francisco in the 60s. You have Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead living in Haight-Ashbury. Excuse me. You have Jimi Hendrix in Haight-Ashbury. And for those who may not be familiar, Haight-Ashbury is a really cool neighborhood area near one of the parks in San Francisco, and it's where the whole flower power movement was. It was the nucleus of the flower power movement. So you had Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead living on one street. You had Jimi Hendrix on another. You had Janis Joplin. You had Grace Slick from Jefferson Airplane. All of this was going on around Haight-Ashbury. And Rachel, living in Nashville, you know, as I do now, right, that sometimes, not always, but sometimes you can walk through Nashville and see somebody that you know who's an artist. Well, it would have been like that in Haight-Ashbury, right? You'd be walking around, and I think it was even more so then, because I don't think that the celebrities had put up the kind of barriers that we do today, probably for safety and security, right? But I don't think that was so much of a concern in the 60s. So I've heard lots of stories where people just would come and hang out with Jerry Garcia or Grace Slick. I mean, and they were just like regular public, just hanging out and being cool, man, and groovy. But at the same time, in the same place, streets away, you had Charles Manson, who was recruiting for the Manson family. And apparently Manson, I'm told intellectually by IQ, was dumb as a box of rocks. I heard that he was just dumb. But I don't see this, but you hear it over and over and over again. Somehow he was extremely street smart and charming. They said he had charisma out the ass. And I don't say it. You look at Charles Manson, you're like, how can that dude even be charming at all? But that's what they say, right? Everyone who talks about him says that at first he was easy to fall into. It was sort of like diving into a pool because he made you feel so special. So he may not have had the IQ, but he had that ability. And he knew that if he was in San Francisco at that time, that there was a whole realm of disenfranchised youth who were desperate to reach and hold on to something. And he said, Haley, I got something you can hold on to, and I'm not being rude. I'm talking about me, talking about my heart. Come on, baby, we can do this together, right? Right? You can be my sister. We'll do this. And people were like, wow, I love that. Absolutely. They felt seen, right on. They felt seen, maybe for the first time ever. You also then had the Zodiac Killer, who was never caught, one of our biggest serial killer mysteries in America, if not the world. I mean, he's right up there with like Jack the Ripper, if you ask me, as far as infamy, right?
Yeah.
And he was brutal, and he was killing at random. He was often killing kids who were on like the Lover Lane lookouts over the city. He was killing at one of the lakes in broad daylight in the national park. Yes, Berryessa. I mean, like, it was brutal. And he was wearing that weird getup, apparently they said often, where he had like the hood and the Zodiac thing. And like, it was all very deliberate and such a weird.
And like Jack the Ripper, he liked to he thought he was smarter and wrote letters to the newspaper and kind of taunted them. To
absolutely.
Like, if you can, but I don't think you'll ever be able to figure out my cipher.
Right, exactly.
I don't think they still have completely figured out all of them yet.
No, I think there's one or two they haven't, but 100%. So how is it? And that's what fascinated me with, and this is like the whole point of the story. That's what fascinated me, is that number one, Antonio Gramsci, decades earlier, had basically could have been speaking about the 1960s, right? Even though he was an Italian socialist. Number two, how could you have all of these youth who were so inclusive,
Yeah, free
so
love.
welcoming, and so like, come on, we're all brothers and sisters, and I just love you, right? We'll take care of each other. And how could you have that, but at the same time, literally streets away, have Charles Manson and the Zodiac Killer, and you also had Jim Jones, who was also recruiting for Jonestown, right, with Drink the Kool-Aid, which, by the way, I've heard it said that Rick Manson left San Francisco only because there was too much competition for cults.
Wow.
Cool little side note too. Angela Lansbury's daughter almost got sucked into the Charles Manson cult, and when she found out that she was dealing with this guy that she didn't approve of, she moved their family out of the country. But her daughter was almost victimized by Charles.
Really?
Uh-huh. I was like, that's crazy.
Angela Lansbury, yeah. What Murder She Wrote? What was her character's name? Yeah, that's crazy. Well, did you know that when Manson went south to L.A., did you know that he actually lived with one of the Beach Boys for a long period of time?
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not saying
Yeah,
like
they
hung
hang
out
out all the time.
like he was a wannabe rock star. He went and this is what I'm talking about. Like somehow like he was just nobody, and not only got access to, but hung out at the Beach Boys' house, stayed there all night, all weekend, all week, and next thing you know, he was there for like an entire summer, like 3, 4, 5 months or something. It's crazy. Like, so one of the Beach Boys lived with Charles Manson. I mean, it's just, it's so surreal. And all of this shit happening at the same time was so unique to me. And in many ways, it's sort of what's happening now again, in a different way. And I thought there has to be something there. So how do I write this as a thriller, not political, not as a social commentary directly, more that you'll just feel that you're in that era, if I do my job well, I hope. And if you're in that era, that in itself is a social commentary, right? Because we're just sort of getting a feel for what it would be like to be transported back to the 60s. I don't like to be so overt with anything as to like try to hit people over the head with a hammer. I'd rather just take you by the hand and say, come with me and we'll walk this path together, you know. And so that was the birth of Monsters. And then it was, okay, what do I do with this? Like, how do I turn this into a thriller? There has to be something that's sadistic. There has to be that infection that I was talking about that's attacking this microcosm that I'm creating. And it has to be something that you would never expect. And then off we go from there. And I never know my endings, by the way, until about 2/3 of the way through.
That's what my next question was going to be. Do you know the ending or the reveal from the beginning, or did it evolve as you wrote?
Always evolves. And that's why I'm not a plotter at all. I mean, I know to a degree what's going to happen, if you want to call that plotting, because it's up here in my head. Like, I know that we're going to go from A to B to a degree, but I don't know all of it for 2 reasons. One is that I can't think of anything more boring than sitting here for sometimes. I mean, there are times when I'll write for 2 hours a day, and when I'm on deadline and I'm like pushing, I've literally sat here for 10, 12 hours, like over and over and over again, day upon day upon day. I can't think of anything more heinous than to sit here for 10 hours at a keyboard writing a story that I already know how it's going to end. To me, that would be boring, right? That would be like making you read the same story every day for a year, and like after the second, third, fourth time, okay, it might start to lose some of its magic, right?
Well,
and that's how I feel
like
right.
It's kind of like an artist who paints. You know, I know for me, like when I'm drawing or painting or whatever, if I continue to look at the picture, I will like change it again and again and again and again and again.
Turns into
like I have to walk away. I have to be like, okay, I'm good with it. Put it away. Done.
That's true, because sometimes you over edit, right? Where you keep going until the point that you actually start to ruin it a little bit. Like, I should have just left that third iteration alone, because now I'm number 17 and it just looks different completely. But yeah, I'm with you on all of that. So I never know the ending. I might sometimes have like an idea, like a little flicker, like I wonder if this could happen or that could happen. But for me, literally, the characters will just, I set the title, I set the cover, I have the idea, the theme, and then I have it start with 1 or 2 characters, and they just go. right? And
Almost
so
like
like
a channel.
Patty,
I love that.
yeah, and Patty, if when you read it, Patty is like the secondary character. She's the best friend of Cassie, and Patty is just like a badass. I mean, she runs a coffee house, and she's just like
Yeah,
a
you just grow to love her like right away.
right. There's something cool about Patty. She's just like a tough chick. She's loving and caring, but she's also no nonsense, and she sort of has to be. And there's probably a whole story there just about who Patty is and how she's come to be the way she is.
Right.
But that's what's fun for me is that they just sort of make their own lives, and I do my best to just record them.
That's
Really
awesome.
cool.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh.
Hey, Katie, can we get some of these awesome comments on the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful support coming in.
So Rachel's question kind of tied in with this one, which I was holding for a second. Was there ever a moment where a character surprised you and took the story in a direction you hadn't originally planned?
Oh, I love that.
So you
Oh,
don't typically
absolutely.
plan, which is what you've said, but have you ever been like, well, that's not even close to what I was thinking?
Right. Every time, 100%. Because again, I really just let the characters live. And I know it sounds corny, but you'll hear other authors say this, so it's a thing. When I'm not writing well, and I'm actually writing it, by which I mean I'm like, I don't like to say forcing it, but like I'm inserting myself into that world, right? There will be times, and this happens more than once. This has happened. There'll be times when, for real, and this is gonna make me sound psychotic, but it's just the way it is, where everyone will stop doing what they're doing. Imagine that you're watching a play, and somebody maybe is disruptive in the audience, and imagine that all the actors just stop what they're doing. They break that fourth wall, and they just look at the person who's disrupting. Right? Imagine if you were like in a Broadway theater and that happened.
Mhm.
That's what happens when I force myself into the story too much. They literally stop what they're doing, and I've literally had them like arms crossed and just sort of like leaning back and tapping their feet. Like I would never say that. So when you want to get your shit together, we'll resume. But until then, maybe you need to go take a break. And when I'm doing really well, I don't feel that I'm writing it at all. I'm really just like trying to, like I said, keep up with what they're doing and just doing my best to authentically record and capture what I'm seeing happening on that screen in my head. And when that is such a beautiful thing when it happens, I just love it. It gives me goosebumps. It's just when that happens, like I'm no longer. It's like they finally invited me into their world, and that does not happen straight away. I always have to sort of inject myself into it, and I have to start the momentum for anywhere from pages to sometimes chapters until it takes over. But there will be a moment in every book where it snaps, and suddenly they take over, and I get goosebumps thinking about it right now. Look, they literally, like at that point, and it happens every novel, they invite me into the world, and they're like, okay, you're safe. We're going to let you in here now. And now we can be true and authentic, and we'll just let you watch. And when that happens, it's just magic, and I love it. So, of course,
So cool.
that means that they surprise the shit out of me all the time. In The Little Woods, which was my debut novel, the supernatural thriller, Della is one of the breakout characters. Della steals the show. She doesn't come in until about 2/3 of the way through the book. It's 413 pages in paperback. Della doesn't even arrive till like page 230 or something like that. Like, yeah, and suddenly she arrives and she steals the show, and she becomes. Everyone says that Della's like one of their favorite characters. She comes as a part to play, and I can't tell you if it's forwards or backwards flashes, but she has a part to play in book 2, Disciple, and book 3, Shadow Watchers as well. Like, and all of that surprised the crap out of me because she was just, to me, I naively thought she was just going to be a secondary throwaway character who was just going to support the main boys. And I was so wrong because she was like, that's not who I am. So I'm at the party now, so you guys better watch because here I am. So she just stole the show as well. And that happens all the time. I love it. And some of the things that happen in Monsters, which I can't reveal, surprised even me. And I was like, holy shit, like, did that really just happen? and then I have to go back and make sure that it makes sense, and it does because it's all happening organically. But yeah, someone saying, do I hear their voices? I do hear their voices. Very much so, and I see them in my head. Like I know exactly what Della looks like, and that's why when I describe them, I think I do get a lot of comments that people say that I'm almost cinematic in how I write. They feel like they're watching a movie rather than just passively reading. They feel like they're in it. And I think that's because I'm inside of it. Like I said, when they finally invite me in, it's pure magic, and I just do my best to record. And I like to record not only what I see, but like what I feel and what I smell. Right? Because if you've ever been around a lot of blood, fresh blood for real, like if you've ever cut yourself bad or been around somebody who's been in a bad accident, it's more than just seeing the blood coming out. There's a very specific odor associated with blood, which is I call it a ferrous smell, which
like
is a
iron.
smell like iron,
Yeah.
or like a wet penny.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that really elicits when you think of like the smell. Imagine like the taste of a wet penny, because when you smell, you also taste to a degree, right?
Yeah.
And if you imagine sucking on a wet penny, that's what like an overpowering amount of extremely fresh blood would smell and taste like.
Mm-hmm.
So when I write, I'm writing that kind of stuff because it's happening around me, and I just do my best to like try to convey what I'm experiencing on paper so that you can experience it with me. That way you're being invited into their world as well. So yeah, I hear the voices, I see them. I know that Della was an African American lady from New Orleans. That she was a voodoo priestess's granddaughter, but she had the most beautiful gray eyes. And I don't know why she had gray eyes. She just has gray eyes. I just knew it. But she just had those beautiful light gray eyes, and almost magic when she would look at you, like you would just like almost melt. And that's Della, and that's partly why she took over the story, I think. She just is Della, and she just took command of it. She took command of the room and the chapter and the book when she showed up.
Good for her.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like, hello world, here I am.
So when
Right?
you were writing, how much of the research did you do into sort of identity and memory and all of that?
Now's the Time of Monsters, like tons. I do all kinds of research. I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you that everything is going to a library and checking out massive tomes of historical facts. Sometimes it's that, but sometimes it's watching a show or listening to music, because all of that. I just love stories, period. Sometimes that can be a nonfiction story, right, which could be something that's historical, and you're reading about fact. Other times that could be a nonfiction documentary that you're watching on TV. Other times it's fiction, but fiction that was made at the time, such as, and I'll often buy them. If you look at my Amazon purchases, like movies that I actually buy and keep because I'm going to watch them over and over, it almost tells a story of what I'm writing, because one of them that I bought for when I was researching monsters was Dirty Harry. Right? Because that took place, Clint Eastwood, classic film, that took place in 1971 in San Francisco. That's literally 2 years ahead of my timeline, which for all intents and purposes is the same timeline. And so I bought that movie, and it's in my Amazon, your purchases list on Amazon Video. And I watched that probably 3 or 4 times, because you can listen to the sounds of what the city sounded like in 1971. And there was a lot of construction happening at the time. You can listen to the sound of the cars, like the cars sounded different, like everything was louder. You can look at the way they were dressed. You can listen to the way they spoke and the lingo and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes I'll just watch like something like Dirty Harry. But that's research, you know what I mean? And I'm doing that right now with my next book, and I can't really tell much about that one. But yeah, but then other times it's actually delving into like serious, like theoretical research. For monsters, I also read some of the papers that the FBI distributes when it's teaching its new special agents about serial killers. And like it's like it's not like a deep dive, but they have papers because not everyone at the FBI is necessarily a serial killer expert or
Right, a
part of the
profiler.
behavioral. Yeah, they're not all part of the behavioral. What
They're
is it? The BAU?
yeah,
BAU, I think the
Yeah,
behavioral whatever unit.
yes,
Not everyone's part of that.
Read.
Right, but they all have to know something about it. So it wasn't a deep dive, but I read one of the papers that the FBI director at the time, about 10 years ago, had distributed to all the agents, and it was part of a workshop on just giving them an overview about serial killers and traits and what to look for, and some of the stereotypes to not get caught up into for fear of maybe missing your man or your woman. Because you're thinking, stereotype instead of reality. It was just really cool. So like that was extremely in depth from the FBI itself. And then I watched Dirty Harry, which is like it's in England they say chalk and cheese, two very different things. But I do all of that research intensely, and I read a lot and watched a lot on all of our serial killers, from Ed Gein, right, on whom Leatherface and the Texas Chainsaw Massacres and so many others were based. Edmund Kemper, who killed his mother and did awful things with her head to humiliate her. Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, the clown killer, BTK, Dennis Rader. In fact, if you read Monsters, you'll see in here one of these sets of pages is a word search that my Gemini killer sends to the San Francisco newspaper.
So cool.
And that was very deliberate because that was something that BTK, Dennis Rader, did often. He was so cocky that he didn't just right. He didn't just write to them. He had actually sent like crosswords and word searches and things like that he made up. And at least one of them, he actually put his actual home address.
Yeah.
And,
I know. Because he was so, he thought, try and catch me. Like, you can't catch me. You're stupid. I'm smart,
Exactly. And he was to a degree right, because it took decades to catch BTK.
But he made a mistake because he sent them like a CD from like I forget, it was something like that it was very specific to a computer that they were able to trace back and find out that it belonged, because he was a part of the church. He was a key member in this church.
100%. I think it was like a floppy drive or something, wasn't it?
Exactly.
And they were communicating by the classified ads in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Back and forth, and he said, "I'll share this, but you have to." This is how weird it is. He said, "But you have to be fair and honest with me, and tell me that if I send you this, it won't cause me problems." And they said, "Oh, absolutely not." And he believed them. And so he sent them this file, which they were able to reverse engineer and find out who he was. And he was disgusted. I've seen interviews with him, and he for the longest time was truly disgusted by that they were so unethical. Isn't that funny?
And him like killing people isn't unethical, right?
Well, no, because he had his own set of parameters and his own morality.
Well,
and if you agree to something,
in the church there too, and for years, I mean, and he raised a family, so everybody thought like, oh, he's just this normal guy. He takes part in church. He has he has a family. He's not a killer.
And he was truly a sick individual, but arrogant as all get out. But the Gemini in my Now's the Time of Monsters is very much an amalgam of all of those killers. And it's a psychological thriller. It also could be classified as a psychological horror. And I don't love the name horror, by the way. I think it's sort of, I'd rather say like a supernatural thriller or a psychological thriller, you know what I mean? And that's okay, but for me, horror sort of pigeonholes you, and it also elicits for a lot of the public who aren't into horror, elicits a sense of like corny, slashery, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is not at all what, you know, the spectrum of horror runs the gamut, right?
Mhm.
And I will have violent occasions in my book as necessary, but my books are always character driven first and foremost, and story driven and plot driven. And then something, you know, something bad, if it's going to happen, you have to be afraid of the threat of it, right? You have to, it has to be significant. It can't be like, oh, you got punched in the mouth and got a bloody lip. I mean, it has to be worse than that. So I will have very brief, almost like slaps across the face, where something really bad happens and it's grotesque, and it'll make you go, whoa, like that's so gross. And then I'm right back to it again, back into the story like it never happened.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of people said that Monsters was extremely graphic. And the funny thing is, it's the least graphic book that I've written. Because most of it, when I'm talking about what's happening, I actually deliberately don't use a lot of description specifically about, you know, every little stroke of the knife or things like that. I just sort of say this is what's happening. But I think by that point, you're so invested in what's going on and you're so invested in the character that just the slightest inference that this is happening makes your imagination go wild.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people said, oh my gosh, it was so graphic. But if you actually go back and read what you thought was a very graphic part, there's actually not that much graphic content. It's more what you're assuming from what's being said,
Yeah.
Which
which is
I
interesting.
appreciate that. It's
That's way
bad enough
scarier.
that your brain's filling in all the gaps for you.
Right.
That's way scarier.
It's spelled out and beat to death.
And sometimes I do. Sometimes it's necessary, but you know, we all get better as we do things as well. I think I was much more literal in the early writing than I am now, and I think that as I grow as an author, I think it helps the readers grow with me because, like you just said, Haley, you know, I find readers actually enjoy being able to fill in those blanks themselves, and Monsters was proof of it because so many people said it was so graphic and it wasn't. But they made it graphic in their own mind. So
Right.
that says more about them than it does about me, I guess.
Yeah. What were you imagining happening to them?
Right.
You sicko.
Exactly. But yeah, someone said graphic, but it's what it puts in your mind. Yeah, absolutely. And I like to play with that, and you know, you have to get better every time, right? Each one should be better than the last.
Right.
My goal, and you're not always going to hit a home run. It's not possible for everybody all the time. But my goal is for each novel to be better than the last.
Yeah.
In some way.
Evolve.
You know, yeah, in some way.
I
Do you
know
want
that.
do you want the exclusive before we go on?
Yes.
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 Since I mentioned the next novel, and then we can carry on, Rachel, if you have more questions about Monsters, by all means. But since I mentioned the next novel, let's go into it. I promised everybody that I'm going to give you an exclusive. So the next novel, number 6, is coming out soon. It's going to be a few months yet. Pre-orders are going to go live next week. So you'll be able to pre-order the paperback and the Kindle from sometime next week, and I'll make the announcement on my socials. But the title, as I think most of my followers know, at least I hope they do, it's called What Big Lies You Have. And this one is more a mystery thriller than my previous ones, and it's inspired by Little Red Cap by the Brothers Grimm. I actually have up here, I have the complete tales by the Brothers Grimm. And Little Red Cap is what we all know as Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
Now, it's not the story of Little Red Cap or Little Red Riding Hood, but it's very much inspired by it. Remember how I said I write? So it's inspired by it, and then I had the title, because you remember in that story, Red, right? She goes through the woods to Grandma's house, and the wolf has already been there and killed Grandma, and he's now dressed up as her in bed, And she says, "My grandma, what big eyes you have." And he says, "The better to see you with." So the novel is "What Big Lies You Have," and the tagline on the front is "The better to deceive you with." And it's a mystery thriller, and it's set in Scarborough in the north of England in the late 90s, and then Savannah, Georgia today. And I love that. That in itself, I love, because you cannot get. I lived in Scarborough, and I also very much love Savannah. I've not lived in Savannah, but I love it. And I can tell you firsthand that you do not get two more different places, even though they're both on the seaside. You do not have two more dissonant places on earth than Scarborough, England in the north, and Savannah, Georgia in the south of America. So different. And that alone made me go, "Oh, that sounds fun. Like, how can we make this two connect?" So it's set in the north of England in the late 90s, and her name is Rosie, and her best friend is Emily. They're 13-year-old girls, and they are going to Scarborough Fair for there's an event in England. My British and probably Australian and Canadian readers will know this. There's an event in England on November 5th called Guy Fawkes Day.
Yeah.
Guy Fawkes, what was that movie that was sort of loosely based on Guy Fawkes, where the guy wore the mask?
V for Vendetta.
Yes, V for Vendetta. Guy Fawkes was actually a traitor who tried to kill the king by blowing up Parliament. So, Big Ben on the River Thames and all those beautiful Houses of Parliament, which is that big, gorgeous building with all the spires, that's the Houses of Parliament. Guy Fawkes, and this was like in the 1600s or something, they called it the gunpowder treason plot, the gunpowder plot. He literally took, I guess, kegs and kegs of gunpowder and tried to blow up Parliament while all the bigwigs were there, because he wanted to overthrow the king and the government. He was unsuccessful. He was caught. They tortured him. They hanged him, and then they were going to draw and quarter him. So if anyone ever says that, like, our American social system is not what it should be, I just ask you to cast yourselves back to not very long ago in England, when part of the punishment was very commonly where they would get 4 horses and connect ropes to each of your limbs, and then they would slap the horses to run in 4 different directions and pluck all your limbs off like a fly. And
Is that
was
drawn and quartered?
Yeah.
Yes, drawn and quartered. Guy Fawkes, I don't believe, was drawn and quartered, because when they hanged him, he made sure that he died. I hear that he deliberately jumped and twisted hard so that he would have his neck broken and die and not have to deal with the drawing and quartering. But they
more the spectacle for the crowd at that point.
Right.
He's not gonna feel it, but it's so gross.
Right. Well, and then they threw his body on a bonfire, I think, and burned him. So Guy Fawkes Day is November 5th, when they caught him and did this and stopped the treasonous plot. And it's also called Bonfire Night. So it's sort of like Guy Fawkes Day or Bonfire Night. Everyone in England has bonfires and fireworks and all that. So sort of like we have 4th of July, they have Guy Fawkes Day or Bonfire Night. Well, my Rosie and my Emily are heading to Scarborough Fair on the morning of November 5th to go to the carnival, because it's Guy Fawkes Day. And Grandma happens to live in an assisted living community adjacent to the fair, where it's being set up by carnival workers, transient carnival workers. And the whole thing changes very quickly from there.
Wow.
So I can't tell you a whole lot more, but I'm excited about it. It's definitely interesting. And it is, here's the exclusive. Are you ready? Well, number one, that was exclusive. Nobody knows that much of the plot until now. Number 2, the release date. You ready? It's going to be September 22nd. So Tuesday, September 22nd.
Right around the corner. Huh?
Let me make sure. I know. Let me make sure that's the right date. That is a Tuesday. That is a Tuesday, right? July, August, September. Yes, it is. Okay, good. Tuesday, September 22nd. The paperback will come out, and I'm working really hard with my audiobook publisher, which is Tantor Audio. they are doing their best to try to get the audiobook out at the same time, which would be a first for me. Normally, my paperback comes out, the hardcover, and then somewhere down the line, sometimes weeks or months away, is the audiobook. Tantor, I love them. They've been really good with me since the start of my career. They are working really hard to try to get the audiobook of What Big Lies You Have to come out September 22nd too, if they can make it happen. And I actually received the narrator sample. I get my contract is that I get to choose the narrator to a degree. Like they'll give me options and I get to pick. And I didn't like one or two. And then about 3 days ago, they sent me one, and I just nearly passed out. She was so perfect. I was like, excuse my language, and I was like, fuck me. This is like this woman cannot be more. This is Rosie. Like she is Rosie. And I just got goosebumps, and I nearly fell off my stool. And I just said, approved, 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 approved. So, and I'm going to share that. They've given me the okay to share that audio clip. So in the next week, when I go into some more details about a couple of things and start the pre-order launch, I'm going to share that sample of the narration for one of the early chapters. And it won't give anything away, but it's very much Northern England. It's very much a 13-year-old girl. It's very much what was happening in the 90s, the late 90s. Like she's listening to Oasis, right? Supersonic and things like that. She has posters of Liam Gallagher on the wall and stuff like that. I love it, and I just adore Rosie. Like I'm in love with Rosie. She's just like one of my favorite characters yet. And Emily too, her best friend, and the whole world is just so interesting. And you don't have to know anything about England to enjoy the story because the story is just two young girls who are 13-year-old friends, and that crosses boundaries, political and geographic boundaries. Anyone can, like Katie, I saw you go, ooh, when I mentioned like Oasis, right? And Liam Gallagher. Like, if you cast yourself back, whether you're in America, England, Australia, Canada, like you know who Oasis was, and if you were around in the late 90s and you were a young girl, you would have been in love with the Gallagher brothers, particularly Liam, right, the lead singer. Yeah, so it's very cool because you're going to get a sense of time and place. And I've tended to notice two things. I tend to write a contrast of previous era mingled with today. I just realized recently that I tend to do that a lot. It's not deliberate, but maybe part of me is nostalgic, And the other thing, and I don't know, Rachel, if this has come up in any of your questions, the other thing I noticed is that I write a lot of protagonists who are women.
Yay!
A lot.
Yeah.
I've written Littlewoods was men, two brothers, Ian and Brian. Disciple and Shadow Watchers that finished that trilogy. I can't reveal because I don't want to ruin that story for anyone, but they were female-led protagonists in both of those. And then number 4 is Now's the Time of Monsters, right? Which is here. And the main protagonist is Cassie, and then her badass friend who's the cafe owner, Patty. And then the third gift was a couple, but it was more focused on the wife. And then What Big Lies You Have coming out is Rosie and Emily. And I'm like, this is so weird because I just write almost exclusively women. But here's what I'm proud of is that nobody says, ooh, that sounded like a man writing that.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Which is important for me. In fact, quite the opposite. I've had a lot of compliments. I'll get DMs, or emails. And one I'll never forget. One was regarding Disciple, which was like a 15-year-old American girl, and the reader had taken the time to just reach out to me and say, I have no idea how you know what it's like to be a 15-year-old American girl, but you absolutely nailed it because I was one.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that makes my heart so happy. Because I don't do it deliberately, like I told you earlier, like they just organically come.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's because and this is where I get vulnerable. I think it's because when I was like, I just turned 7, my father died, and he was only 33, and he had been in the Marine Corps, and he was like pre-Vietnam, post-Korea, and we think, and my mother is the furthest thing from a conspiracy theorist that you ever get. Like my mom is just like so straight-laced, and she just doesn't entertain silliness like that. But even my mother has said to me on numerous occasions that she thinks from the letters that he had written her when they were overseas that they were probably screwing around with Agent Orange.
Oh.
And so when he came back, colon cancer is typically a slow cancer, and typically is it affects people much older, typically. And he was only 33, and it was extremely fierce and aggressive, and he died very quickly, which was just unheard of. And I think most doctors would probably agree that's just so like out there. So he died when I was 7, and it was just my sister who was 5 years older than me. And when you're 7, that means she's 12. When you're 8, she's 13. So you're still a stupid baby kid, and she's a teenager now. And my mother. And I once saw an interview with Ryan. Is it Ryan Gosling who was in Barbie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And The Notebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like every man wants to be Ryan Gosling because he's just a cool dude. You want to be his friend. Every woman wants to be with Ryan Gosling because he's just such a heartthrob. And like there's something about him that just touches people. And I remember seeing an interview with him, and they said, "How is it that you're so good at engaging like the female psyche? Like, why do women like you so much, but men like you too? Like, men don't hate you; they're not jealous of you; they like you as well. Like, it's a rare thing." And he said, and I'll never forget this. He said, "You know what? I've heard that more than once, and I think it's because I was raised by my sister and my mother." And that resonated with me, and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Because I was posing this question to myself, like, why do I so often gravitate to writing female characters, oftentimes strong, badass female characters? And I think just because of how what happened when I was 7 years old, and how my life changed trajectory from that point.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That does.
Sorry, I just brought us all way down, didn't I? Sorry.
It's a great story. I'm sorry for your loss. Wow. But yeah, that makes sense. That the people around you, especially in those formative years, changed your life. It's the company you keep and the influence that it has over you. But that's really powerful. We need more male voices that speak for women. So that's awesome.
Right. And hopefully complex women, not just not just like two-dimensional stereotypes, And I'll be honest with you, when I'm writing them, I'm just writing them as a person. I don't see them as male or female. They're just a person, a soul, just an energy. And if they happen to be female, then so be it.
Yeah.
I think
If that makes sense.
definitely Cassie is like one of those characters, and I know that Cassie utilized tarot and sort of visions and intuitive flashes. So do you believe that people can genuinely receive like psychic impressions?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
It sounds like you do.
Look, what's this? I gotta get it pointed out right. Oh, it's so hard when it's all mirrored. Do you see all this back here? Yeah. That in the distance, you can hardly see it. Right there is my sage spray. That's Palo Santo sticks, and right there is my spirit box.
Yay!
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah. So my grandmother was the matriarch of our family as well, and that's maybe part of it too. Give her credit. My grandfather, Pappy, was amazing, but Granny was the glue. Like Granny was the one who she had 8 grandkids, of which I was one. And back in the 70s, right? She would literally, if Charlie Brown Thanksgiving was going to be on Thursday night, she would get on the phone, the old rotary phone, and she'd be like, "Hey, Alan, it's Granny. No, Charlie Brown's on NBC at 8 o'clock. Yes, Channel 4. All right, honey, bye." Then she would go call the next grandkid, and she would literally call all the grandkids and make sure they knew to watch Charlie Brown tonight. Like, that was Granny. She just loved all things childlike. Not childish, childlike. And she was really like the glue that held things together. But I've heard stories from my sister, who's 5 years older than me, that my grandmother shared stuff with her that she had never shared with me about that kind of sensitivity and being somehow like a conduit to receiving these kinds of things.
It's funny because listening to describe your writing process feels a lot like when I listen to fellow remote viewers.
Yes.
Where these perceptions are coming to you from an external source, and a lot of that is described in the world's most famous geniuses. So we'll group you in there. Why not? But no, it's very cool that you are open to letting the story speak to you and through you. That's really beautiful. Very
Thank
cool.
you. When it happens, and it always does, and that's why I can't force it. Because if I force it, they just do that thing where they're like, this is, it feels artificial. So sometimes it means I end up putting myself under extreme duress because then I have to hit a deadline, and now I have to work, like I said, 10 or 12 hours. And even though it's a beautiful thing and it's happening and they've invited me in, that's exhausting. It'd be like doing having like a mediumship gathering and doing it for like 10 hours straight. Like you'd be exhausted at the end of it.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like that. But I too am very sensitive that way. I've never asked for it, but every house I've been in has been haunted, and it suddenly made me realize that I wonder it could be two things. Maybe it's me who's haunted, or for real, or two, maybe it's because I'm a bit of a pantheistic, where God and the universe are all one and the same.
Yeah.
And I'm also Christian, very much so, but I'm not religious in any way, shape, or form, because I'm also very pantheistic. So like I have a lot of belief sets that are typically at odds. But enter Della from the Littlewoods, who has also all these different belief sets, and they all come together in the center, and that's where she resides, and that's where I reside too. If you take some like Buddhism and Judaism and Christianity and pantheism, and you sort of like overlap them, you'll find that there's like a chart, one of those charts where you draw the lines, and suddenly where they all tend to cross in the intersection, it gets to be thicker, darker.
Yeah.
That intersection is like where truth is found.
Yeah.
And so I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. And it could be that I just am somehow receptive to picking up these things. And I don't think the house is maybe necessarily haunted. I think that veil is so thin, and both systems, both universes, both realities exist at the same time in the same place. And perhaps that veil is very thin for me. And maybe I see and hear things from time to time, and maybe they know that I see and hear things from time to time, and so maybe they give me little nudges and little taps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
Who knows? But whatever you want to call it, I get that stuff all the time. Sometimes it smells. Oftentimes it smells. Sometimes it's not usually hearing. Sometimes, but usually smell, or I'll see something like shadows, or somebody appearing to like peek around the corner and then disappear again, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's an amazing gift. Awesome.
Yeah.
So
So
I'm sure you guys can completely relate, because you're probably, that's probably why you do the podcast, right? Because you have similar belief sets and experiences.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, definitely. So if you had to spend one night in a haunted location with Cassie, where would you go?
Oh, with Cassie? Oh, I'd go anywhere with Cassie, because she's badass. So I could just, like, I don't have to worry about taking care of her. She'd take care of me. Where would I go, though? Boy, that's a great question. Let me think about that. Where would I go? Anywhere, any haunted location. You know, I'm drawn to like jails and prisons, I think, and asylums. I think there's something, especially asylums, I think there's something tragic and poignant about these places where so many misunderstood people were not only sequestered, but oftentimes tortured, whether deliberately or in the name of science or whatever. Yeah, I think it'd probably be one of the big asylums that we all see in here. What's that really famous one that's acres and acres and acres and there's all the different buildings? What's that asylum? You know the one I'm talking about?
Talking about like not Eloise, is it?
Oh, it could be that one. There's
Eloise.
one that has multiple buildings on acres, and it's all defunct now, and it's long since gone. I think it closed up, like ultimately about 30 years ago. But
Maybe that
I
was
mean, it's sad and brutal when you hear the stories about what took place there and things that they thought they were doing to help that are just barbaric, and also things that happen to these
experimenting on
people.
humans instead
Yeah,
of
and
anything.
that people took advantage. It's not everybody, but that there are some elements that would take advantage of those people too.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think someplace like that would be very, for me, that would be hard, but would be probably the most interesting for me to. I think I would.
Since you're in Nashville, you'll have to come paranormal investigating.
Yes, I would love that.
Oh my
Absolutely.
gosh, you guys would have a blast.
Oh, I would love that.
I have a similar question. Okay, so you guys are holding a seance now because you're hanging out in Nashville. If you could bring back any author, living or dead, to talk to, who would you pick?
Oh, that's easy. So easy for me. It's my friend Edgar,
Yay!
of course.
We're all hanging out with Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, yeah. He is number one. He's just such an enigma, and that actually leads me to. Do you want to hear the other exclusive I promised you, which is about book number 7?
Yes.
Please.
I had announced quite a while ago, a few months ago, that my 7th book will be coming out next year, 2027. I've already begun work on it, and it will be my first co-write. So that will be a fun experience and a different challenge in itself, right? Because it'll be working with another author. But that author, and I did announce this already, so this isn't the exclusive part, but that author is Dacre Stoker. And Dacre, if people watching, listening, don't know Dacre yet or know the name, but they think it sounds familiar, it's because Dacre Stoker is the great grandnephew of no less than Bram Stoker, who of course is the author of Dracula. And Dacre is now the world's preeminent authority on his great granduncle Bram. There's nobody in the world who knows Bram Stoker better, and Dacre's whole purpose is to really just keep Bram alive by lecturing. He goes to Romania a lot. He goes to Europe. He goes to Whitby in North Yorkshire, and he lectures on Bram Stoker and the reality of who the man was and how that reality weaves into the story of Dracula. Well, Dacre himself is a New York Times bestseller. He and J.D. Barker, who a lot of people know, they co-wrote Dracula, which I think is the prequel to Dracula, and it's a New York Times bestseller. Well, Dacre and I are working together for my 7th novel. It will be a dark. This is the exclusive bit because nobody knows this. It will be a dark, gothic, contemporary mystery thriller with parallels to historical situations and incidents and circumstances that actually took place with Bram Stoker and Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes. Yes.
I'm so pumped about this because it's, and again, you've probably noticed, like, okay, so I had the Little Woods and Disciple and Shadow Watchers, and they were all supernatural and demonic and spiritual based. And then I have Now's the Time of Monsters, which is psychological. Now that's, man is monster. The Third Gift is psychological thriller. Again, man is monster. Then we have What Big Lies You Have, which is, again, psychological mystery thriller. Man as monster. Now we're going into the next one, and I can't reveal the name. I almost did. Can't reveal the name. And this one would be a mix of the two. It would be man and also supernatural as monster. And I often like to play that and weave the two together because The Little Woods is a little bit of that, where it's a bit psychological and a bit supernatural. And sometimes you're wondering, okay, I think this is something, a cult happening here. And then you're like, no, it's not. This is just somebody who's maybe a little bit psychotic, or maybe someone's having an episode, or someone's lost the reality. But then you're like, no, it's not that. It's a cult. I can feel it, right? And I love that. I love doing that. That even makes you question. And book number 7 is going to be just like that. It's going to involve psychics. It's going to involve Edgar Allan Poe. It's going to involve Bram Stoker. And Poe, as you know, was born in 1809 and died in 1849. Bram Stoker was only 2 when Edgar Allan Poe died, so he would never have crossed paths with Poe, and Poe would never have known who Bram Stoker was. However, there is a connection, which I will not reveal, it's for the book, and a very, very intriguing connection. And when I spoke to Dacre about it, he said, absolutely, not only can that be real, but he said, Alan, what you just cottoned on to actually took place, because we know from our family history and family memories about a party that took place with A, B, and C.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
It connects Poe with Stoker, even though they're 2 different generations,
Absolutely.
which is fascinating. And then it's going to be set in contemporary times. It'll be set today, and there will be a modern scholar, author, who is an expert and lectures on Gothic literature. And so that protagonist is going to go down the rabbit hole, and off we go into this really interesting, dark, Gothic mystery thriller. So it'll be a bit supernatural, a bit psychological, and where it ends, I can't tell you, but I don't even know myself, but we have an idea.
So we all have like a year to read the rest of your books to get
Yes,
a feel
please.
for how you write, what your characters are like, and then we can pre-order this book, and we can have you back on after that comes out.
When that comes out. Well, you can also have me on when What Big Lies You Have comes out. If you,
Listen, we'll
if you
have
read
you
it.
on.
And
Yeah, we'll
I
have
don't
you on
care.
anytime.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm at your disposal. I love this, and I think you're all awesome. So, What Big Lies You Have, September 22nd. It'll go on pre-sale next week. I'll announce it on my page. And we're hoping to get the audio book out at the same time. Tantor Audio is working really hard on that. And then I'm going to be doing a rollout tour. I've got some bookstores even right here in Nashville, and then I'll be going further afield to do my What Big Lies You Have tour. And that will have, between Nashville, certainly Hudson, I'll be at Hudson Valley Horror again. I'm going to be at a new Literary Legends in Knoxville, September 12th. I think that one is, about 10 days before the book comes out. And Dacre may also be there with me. So if anyone wants to travel to Knoxville, September 12th.
Not far from me.
Yeah, right?
I know, yeah.
I'll be so surprised if Rachel is not there.
They are a really cool, very large Knoxville book club, and they are hosting their first ever book event, and it's called Literary Giants or something like that. I apologize, and I apologize to you guys for not having the exact name, but that was just announced, and they've invited me to come, and they've also invited Dacre. I think he's looking at his schedule, and he's trying to attend as well. So that would be cool. That'll be just for like days before What Big Lies You Have comes out. And then by the end of October, by Halloween, like What Big Lies You Have will be sort of on autopilot. And then we'll start moving towards book 7, which will be the co-write. And I have to stop because 3 times I nearly told you the title.
Spill the tea.
I know, you guys are like putting a spell on me or something. You're like, real.
Never. Would never do that.
He's on.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. It's going to be fun. So lots and lots and lots happening right now. And yeah, I couldn't be more thrilled. I'm just tickled. And I'll come and talk to you guys anytime you want about any of this stuff. And we could even just come and talk about more about the spiritual stuff and the veil between here and there and all that. Like, we don't even have to talk about the book. Because I would love to hear your experiences more on that. And I'll watch more of your podcast too to learn more.
So where can people find you?
You mean like online and stuff like that?
online? What?
Not your address. Don't do that.
Let me give you the address here.
I
The
mean,
best, I mean, I'm on, my main social is Facebook. That's probably my biggest following. And also Instagram, and then a little bit on TikTok. I have to do better with TikTok, so I'm really trying to work on that. But on all three, it's the same. It's my handle's AG Mock Author. So if you just go to Facebook, Insta, or TikTok and type in AG Mock Author, before you finish the R of author, it'll already be up. Follow me there. My website is agmock.com. And if you go to my website and you want to see like where I'm going to be, I put on there down near the bottom, it says meet me in person. I put all my events down there. As soon as I have them, like the Knoxville one, literally just was confirmed with me like 2 days ago. So that's not on there yet, but it will be soon. But I put all my events on there, and I try to be intentional about you as like the reader, as the attendee, because there's nothing worse than someone saying, "Oh, I'm going to be at so-and-so place," but they don't tell you like when it is, where it is, how to get there, what the address is, how much it costs, where's the website. Like that drives me freaking crazy, right?
mm-hmm.
So I try to be like, okay, it's here's the logo, here's the name of it, here's the date of it, this is the address of it, here's the website, here's the Google Maps, like all of that's on, and it sounds cumbersome. It's not. It's just a little teeny box that has the logo name in like one paragraph. But all of the little links, I make sure that like you know exactly where the hotel is, or where the conference or convention center is, and how much it costs, and where you get your tickets. Like all of it from my website. So the Knoxville one coming up in September will be on there soon, and all of that's at agmock.com. And you can also join my Inner Sanctum email list, which is one of my favorite things, because that's free and it helps me wildly, because then I can communicate with like my fans who are like really wanting to know what's happening without having to rely on the algorithms at Meta, who sucks, by the way. So if you know Meta,
Wholeheartedly.
like every time I like block somebody because they're just being just rude or political or whatever, and I won't stand for that on my page, because my page is about, you know, thrillers and the macabre and fun, interesting, dark gothic stuff. Like I'm not here about politics. Like, so if I block somebody, and I try not to do that a lot, but if I do it, I will tell you this: every time I block somebody, I see a dip in my algorithm on Meta.
Oh, that's rude. I'm glad you
Yeah,
said
it is
that.
rude.
I love blocking people.
Yeah.
You are not going to upset me on my own page. Excuse me.
Exactly. Well, and you're not going to upset my other readers as well. You know what I mean? So, like, if that's who you are, I don't want just like you don't belong. That's not my tribe. But yeah, I noticed that Meta doesn't like that. Meta wants you to be like okay with all that shit, because they love the drama, right? Because they're drama mamas.
Yeah.
So whenever you don't buy into the drama, they dip your algorithm. So if you go onto my agmock.com website and you sign up for my Inner Sanctum emails, then we can say screw them and we can just communicate by just, or you can send me DMs, because like they can't, to my knowledge, really block that. But the algorithm, like the posts, sometimes my posts will be seen by thousands of people and commented on by hundreds. Other times I'll have 12. Right? There's no rhyme or reason. So the fact that I'm reliant upon that, we all are in our careers, is scary and unsettling. So yeah, join my Inner Sanctum email and we can say basically fuck Meta, and we'll still use them, but we won't be reliant upon them. How about that?
Yes.
Nice.
All right.
They are a tool and they are tools.
Absolutely. I love all you three, so thank you. Rachel, thank you for the invitation and such thoughtful questions. Katie, it was so nice to meet you, and Haley as well. And please have me again, and we can talk about any old thing about spirituality and the universe, and you know, reaching the other side, because I'd love to hear from you guys on that. And
We'll
then
absolutely be doing that. We'll get weird.
yeah,
We need to get Haley free for the 12th. She can fly into Indy. I'll grab her there, and then we'll drive down to Knoxville.
there you go. See,
She's planning my kidnapping already. I'm so excited.
It's not a kidnapping if you willingly show up.
right. And if you don't, then it will be a kidnapping.
Oh my
But that would be fun. Absolutely, we could do that. And Rachel, we need to get together and grab coffee or something, because I think there's more ways that all four of us could like work together on some other stuff too,
Hell yeah.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
and like especially with the number 7 coming out next year and the topics, I think that it would be perfect for you guys to maybe do some stuff with me. So if Rachel, we just grab a coffee, we can just shoot some ideas around and just brainstorm some fun stuff. Like the weirder, the wilder, the more like unusual, the better. And then eventually we'll land on something that could work.
Beautiful.
And then you can share it with the girls, and you guys can decide like that sounds cool or that sounds stupid or whatever. But
Nope, all of the things.
Sure, we'll
That
be
is
like,
all of the things.
yeah, well, I'm the same. But yeah, and Daker's that way too. I mean, you get a chance to meet him. Very cool gentleman. I didn't know what to make of him when I first met him several years ago. Because Bram Stoker is such an icon. Like, you think, okay, so he's a direct descendant. Is he gonna be real stuffy? Is he gonna be like, I don't know, like you just don't know, right? You build up, this is how stupid we are, how we build up these images and we put people in little boxes. And man, he is just the greatest guy, and we became close friends like that, like super quick. And then we're like, we got to work together. And then I said, hey, what about this idea? And he was just like, you had me at whatever. This is one of those deals, and off we go. So we'll be touring together for the 2027, but he's also going to be with me in July at the Imaginarium convention, if you guys have heard of that, in Louisville, Kentucky.
there, but something like a retreat came up, so I had to make a decision.
Right. There's so many of them. There's so
Yeah.
many. And it's so hard to get around to everybody. But I have people who've been saying in Kentucky and in like southwestern Ohio, saying like, you got to come here. Well, like this convention, the Imaginarium in Louisville, is going to be like 2 hours from like, is it Cleveland or Cincinnati? Which one's down in that one?
Cincinnati's going to be
Cincinnati.
south.
Yeah, it's like 2 or so hours, right, from Cincinnati, Louisville, and all my Kentucky peeps. So like, if you're in Kentucky or Louisville, or like parts of Ohio, I can't remember what date, but it's on my website. It's the Imaginarium Convention. It's like I think we're there for 3 or 4 days, and Daker will be there with me as well. We're both guests.
Nice.
So cool.
Oh.
That's gonna be great.
Thank you, ladies. I so appreciate you. I hope you had a good
Yeah.
time. I had a great time.
Yeah, thank you so much, AG. As ever, if you guys are here, please make sure that you like, share, subscribe, all of the things for us. Do all the things on AG's socials as well, so you can get all the updates. Go to some of those locations, conventions, whatnot. Say hey. Tell AG how wonderful he is, because everybody needs to hear that. So
Thank you so much to everyone who joined us in the comments today. You were wonderful. Thank you, Stephanie, Holly, Steve, Alexis. Oh my gosh, Billy. So many wonderful people joining us today. Thank you so much for tuning in.
yes,
Thank
we
you,
love you
everybody.
guys so much. We'll see all of you next Thursday, 9 o'clock, right here. Girlies, we love you.
Peace out, guys. Love you all.